Welcome, everyone. My name is Stephanie Wolf, and I am the Membership Relations Coordinator at Population Connection. Thank you again for joining us for today's virtual event and gathering together as we mark the upcoming International Women's Day, which takes place this Saturday, March 8th. I am thrilled that we will learn more from today's speaker who used her passion and expertise to start a women-led, community-driven NGO in Kenya. I'd like to introduce Wendo Sahar, founder and executive director of Dandelion Africa. Wendo studied nonprofit leadership at Stanford University and social entrepreneurship at Santa Clara University. Wendo is an African Visionary Fellow. Her work was recently recognized as Best in Gender Inclusion in Kenya. Wendo sits on multiple local and international boards and consults for nonprofit philanthropists on grassroots-driven initiatives. Now, if you have any questions for Wendo, please drop them in the Q&A box found at the bottom of your screen. We will do our very best to answer those questions along with the pre-submitted questions during the Q&A session, and our Q&A session will be facilitated by our senior analyst, Hannah Evans. For any questions we don't have time to answer live, we will provide written responses along with a recording of this presentation, the presentation slides, and access to the chat box discussion. Now, those are all the housekeeping items for me. Let's go ahead and get started. Wendo, I will send it over to you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me present today. It's such a special month because it's a representation of all of us, especially women across the world, and the gains we have made, the challenges we are facing, and the redesigning of interventions in the face of the geopolitical context that we currently face. So I sit in privilege today, being able to sit on this table to present to you some of the interventions of Dandelion Africa. So as introduced, my name is Wendo Sahar, founder and executive director of Dandelion Africa. I am going to run through some slides and some videos. Kindly bear with me should we have any technical features. So I'll start by explaining to you who we are. We are a female-led grassroots organization that's focused on women's health, economy, and agency. And we work through an integrated model that focuses on improving health outcomes, economic power, education outcomes, and amplifying the choice, voice, and power of communities. You've heard that it is locally led. We are deeply rooted and embedded in our communities, and we work in the arid and semi-arid regions of Kenya, from West Pokot, Baringo, Nakuru, Narok, and Kajiado, which are predominantly pastoralist communities. Our vision, as we usually say at Dandelion, we want a world where communities live healthy and educated lives. And our mission is to improve the health and economy of women. I know that the flower dandelion has many connotations. Dandelion flower is a symbol of women, and the reason why we called the organization Dandelion. When coining what to call the organization, we're thinking about something that is beautiful, something that is powerful, something that every part of it can be used like women. For example, we are sisters, we are mothers, we are caregivers, we are innovators, we are multitaskers, and everywhere you plant us, even in the middle of a rock, we will grow just like dandelion. Most importantly, people make a wish on us. And that is the reason why the organization was called Dandelion, because it resonates so much with what I see in the world and how women embody the power of just being against all odds. We still thrive, we still grow, and that is the reason why the organization is called Dandelion. So why are we in arid areas? 3 million women who live in the arid regions of Kenya lack access to contraceptives. 4 million or thereabout of Kenyan girls and women have experienced female genital cutting. So this is the partial or complete removal of female genitalia. We have, the numbers are growing with over 13,000 teenage girls who drop out of school annually because of early pregnancy. Now, this is a tragedy in the current economy in our country today, because when women are not educated, when women do not have autonomy over their bodies, when women have no access, it means that they stay in poverty. It also means that they lack agency and they lack time for productive work, meaning that at the end of the day, they're considered lesser beings because there's so many setbacks when it comes to their health and their economy. 70% of women local to Dandelion have unmet needs for healthcare services. And shockingly, only 56% receive antenatal care. Now, because of the high number of women who have unmet need for contraceptives, over 5,000 women die while giving birth in this country. And I think that one death is too much. So that is the reason why we exist. That is the reason why we focus on the arid and semi-arid regions. Because some of the factors affecting why we exist there, the distance to facilities are far. You might find a facility that is 20 to up to 60 kilometers apart from each other. The infrastructure in some areas is non-existent. There's also lack of proper skills and upgraded trends, especially when it comes to long-acting contraceptives or emergency obstetric care, point of care, ultrasound use. There is a lot that is missing within our settings that makes it important for organizations like Dandelion to exist in such needy areas. I am going to play for you a short video just so you can understand why Dandelion exists in our context. Stephanie, you kindly help me in case we can't hear. Enjoy.
Working with women living in rural areas, I have seen enormous change when they access family planning options that enable them to have more time for productive roles, and they're able now to save through table banking and access loans to start income generating activities. This has allowed women to access water tanks because of the semi-arid strip that we are in, that has now also enabled them to learn more on eco-friendly farming, and through that they're able to now support their families with good food and nutrition. This has also enabled women to have leadership skills because of the time they're able to save and influence change in the community.
Hawa watu wa Dandelion wakaona ni vyema mimi nitrainiwa alafu nijue mengi kuhusu ushanga. Sasa niliporudi wakaona ni vizuri tufunze wengine, ndio sasa naendelea kufunza hawa na wamejaribu, wamejua. Nimefunza naye watoto wangu, tunanunua naye chakula.
Hatukuwa tukijua kusave, kuweka pesa, yani kuweka, tulikuwa tukiweka pengine chini ya mattress. So tukisave hii pesa imetusaidia kwa sababu mama anaomba loan, anaweza lipa fees. At the end of the year tunakuanga na dividends. Mtoto wangu pia ni GBV champion na amekuwa akisupport youth sana. Apart from hiyo, watoto wetu pia kama wamama hatuna changamoto ya kununua pads. Pads tunaletewa na Dandelion.
I can say the street business school has really helped me a lot, because before I was being trained, I didn't know how to allocate business. So since I was taught, now I am able to run a business whereby first of all I have to look for a better place where I know that the customers will be able to reach me, and also By the training, I'm able to record my profits and the losses. When I accessed family planning through Dandelion, I was able to take care of my 2 children, whereby when I wake up in the morning, I prepare them for school, and when they leave for school, I open the animals for grazing, whereby I also go to the river, fetch water, attend the community forums. And in future, I would like to access a tank whereby I'll reduce time from going to the river to my place.
Being a member of Ukilke group, I've been able to do a lot of projects. I started with converting my house from grassroots to a stone house. Also, I have been able to do sheep project, cattle project. Also, I was able to do farming and planted mango trees, orange trees, and poultry. This family planning has helped me a lot. In fact, I've had time to attend to schools for my children, to follow up their academics. Also, I have had time to attend barazas and public participations. I have been able to be elected as a POG, Board of Management of Schools, and many other places like the church. I can even get my own time to relax, because when you have children, you cannot even relax.
Ninafanya table banking, tunafanyanga kwa mwezi mara moja. Tunatoanga merry-go-round 500 na tunaomba loan. Hiyo loan imenisaidia kwa sababu ninachukua mahindi kutoka Suswa, ninaweka kwa kisiagi yangu machine, ninauzia wa customers, na nimepata mafunzo kama mafunzo ya biashara, vile nita expand biashara yangu na vile nita manage. Umuhimu ya Dandelion, wametufunza tusiwe idle. Kila mtu awe busy na kazi yake, ajisaidie katika jamii.
I would like to advise women who have not yet begun their economic empowerment journey to join groups so that they're able to gain skills on table banking that will allow them to have financial freedom and make informed choices for their families, their institution, and at the community level.
Thank you so much. I hope that was helpful to be able to understand how we work. Now, in Dandelion, women are right at the center. Based on the video that you have watched, you will note that women need time for productive work. So I'm going to share with you our model, which is integrated and a very unique model because women need so many things. And yes, we cannot do everything. But a woman, first and foremost, needs good health to be able to make money. Once she has money in her pocket, it will be easier for her to look after her children and to be able to take up leadership positions in communities so that she is actually able to contribute to the things that affect her the most. Now, based on our model, as you see it, we at the center, we have our backpack nurse site, and this is linked to government health facilities through a hub and spoke approach. I am going to go through our programming one by one. I'll try not to take up so much time so that we have time for Q&A.
Wendo, I just wanted to hop on real quick. If you could put it in the presenter view, it'd be amazing. There's lots of great information we'd all love to see. Perfect.
Okay, can you see that?
Looks great.
Fantastic. So that is our model where the woman is at the center through the backpack nurse site. And the backpack site is a model that is linked with a government health facility through a hub and spoke approach. We have 4 core programs, and that is the health. We have women livelihood program, we have advocacy, and we have the youth program. Now, I'm going to run through our health program so that you can understand why women are at the center. Now, Dandelion Africa has two aspects of the health program. We have what we call green health facilities. And why am I calling them green? We're among the few organizations that have constructed completely green health centers. So when I talk about green, I mean fully solarized, fully biogas, and we only plant organic because we understand that healthcare and climate change are actually intertwined, and there's so much and everybody can do to be able to mitigate effects of climate change. And the second part is the backpack nurse safe spaces. So when it comes to health centers, one of the things that we have been trying to do is health system strengthening. Health system strengthening means we train healthcare workers on administering long-acting contraceptives, emergency obstetric neonatal care, and currently we support 112 government health centers, both in support supervision and data quality assessment. I know that data is everything. Data informs us of the interventions we need to be looking at, what we need to stop doing, and what we need to do better. And that is the reason for us, it is critical for us to support the government hospitals to analyze their data so that we make sure that there is quality of data that we can actually share with stakeholders and the government itself, so that even when they're talking about the number of contraceptives that communities are taking and how much they need to budget, it comes from a point of the data that is actually on the ground. So that is one of the arms of our green health centers. Of the health centers, we have 3 health centers. We have one in Nakuru County called Dandelion Medical Center Sarambe. We have one in Mogotio called Dandelion Ulamari, and we have one medical center at Amboseli National Park called Dandelion Medical Center Kilimanjaro. All these facilities are there to ensure that we are improving maternal child health and reproductive health of women. We offer an array of services, including ultrasound, because women walk really, really far to be able to come there, both to get contraceptives, whether it is instant or postpartum contraceptives after delivery. Now, the second part is the community health strengthening, where we have backpack nurses. So currently we have 60 backpack nurses. This is a nurse on a motorbike, like you can see here. And they have a backpack with them, and inside there are vaccines where we vaccinate children. We've got contraceptives. We've got HIV testing equipment. We've got speculums for cervical cancer screening. Now, the beauty of this model is that we have also constructed or rented safe spaces in communities, because we understand sometimes when a nurse goes into a home and we are coming from a very patriarchal community, the husbands might ask, what is it this nurse is coming to do here? So we've created a safe space where women and girls can walk into these spaces and be able to get family planning services, antenatal, postnatal, HIV testing, and if you're positive, you are started on treatment immediately. We take them through health education, cervical and breast cancer screening. In case someone is positive, through the hub and spoke approach, they are referred to the nearest facility. And of course, we offer primary health care. This is a very interesting model also because we work with community health promoters. Now, for those of you who know a little bit about our Kenyan health system, the government has been working, especially from last year, to professionalize, to digitize, and to teach community health promoters. Now, Dandelion has worked hand in hand together with the government to train over 2,000 community health promoters, of whom we have integrated into our model, and 1,400 of these community health promoters are in self-help groups, which means that it will be sustainable in the end, whether Dandelion is there, whether the government pays them or not. These are women who, majority, actually 78% of the community health promoters are women, and that means that they will always have money in their pockets because they're not only doing voluntary work. We want them to be sustainable. We want them to come out of poverty as they do the amazing work that they do for the community. Now, once women have contraceptives, what happens next? They have time. And time is something that most women in rural areas and across the world don't have. We are busy caregivers. We work, we go home, we cook. And in our setting, she will go look for water. She has cattle to milk. She's cooking. She's looking after the children. She has no time. So once she has time for productive work because she's using contraceptives and she's getting healthier, and remember that all the contraceptives that we give, long acting, short term contraceptives, IUDs, and referring them to our health center for tubal ligation. Once they get all this for free, they now can join Women Livelihood Program. And our Women Livelihood Program has three arms: the economic empowerment, climate change mitigation, and leadership. In the economic power, we teach them on business skills, getting them out of their comfort zone, because most of us are taught not to speak out, not to use our voices. So even starting a business sometimes is such a daunting task. We teach them how to save and borrow their own money. Whatever little you have, if we come and bring all that money together, then it becomes a lot more. And then women are able to borrow in real time because we don't have collateral. We don't own land. The only thing we have are chickens and our goats. So we can't put that on the table. So as a collective, we put money on the table. And I think this year, for example, women saved $15,000 in totality. And I think that only being an improvement by 13% compared to last year. So by putting money on the table, they're able to start businesses. They're able to learn how to do market research. They learn about budgeting. And slowly, women start to get out of poverty. In arid areas, we are affected by climate change. If it's not raining, there is drought. When there's rain, there is floods. So we are teaching women how to mitigate climate change, how to come up with projects that will curb whether it's flooding of their land through water projects. For example, the Judo project where women access water tanks. We teach them on permaculture. How do we use whatever we have to be able to have organic food and reduce diseases like cancer, like diabetes, like high blood pressure. We teach them about family planning and continue to teach them because in our area, we also have gender-based violence. We have female genital mutilation. So how do you protect yourself from gender-based violence? How do you report? And how do you respond when you hear other people are going through the same? So we teach them about that. Now, lastly, when they have money, and they are able to combat issues of climate change in our communities, they are able to vie for leadership positions. And you see, for us, leadership positions is not necessarily a political position. Leadership position is the board of management that you saw Margaret being in. Leadership position is being in a church leadership position. It is being in a women's group and being the chair lady, the treasurer, the secretary, and having the agency to decide that, you know what, I too can lead. I too have the power to be able to change how my community looks like. I want to go to what we call a baraza, that's like a chief meeting, and to be able to speak out about the issues affecting women in our community. So that part, Women Livelihood Program ensures that women have the capacity and agency to be able to look after themselves in terms of economy, in terms of health, now in terms of leadership. Now, what happens to their children? That is why the Dandelion's program are so integrated. When a woman's child is sick, she cannot think. I know for a fact because when my daughter is sick, I am not able to concentrate in my work. So how do we make sure that as women are thriving, their children are also thriving? Now, remember we said 13,000 girls drop out of school annually in our country because of early pregnancy. Now, our Girls for Leaders Voice for Change program works towards creating opportunities for education for girls because in our setting, girls are considered currency. When there is a problem in our community, there is drought. The first person to be told, you have to get married, it is a girl. When FGM or female genital cutting you hear about it, it is girls. When a girl gets pregnant, for example, an intended pregnancy, there's an old man waiting somewhere for this girl to be married to him. So our job is to ensure that every girl has an opportunity for an education, because we also know that educating a girl is the strongest strategy and the most powerful strategy to combat climate change. Now, we train them on age-appropriate sex education. We train them on leadership and agency. But most importantly, we train them on advocacy. And advocacy for us is very, very personal. Because as I was growing up, I did not know the role of our member of parliament. I did not know the role of our governor. But we are teaching our students as early as 10 years old to understand the hierarchy of our national system. We then bring them together with our duty bearers, that's the MPs, the members of parliament, the governors, for them to articulate issues like, why is it that I'm in a class that has no roof? We have no desk. As girls, we have no changing room. We are 600 kids with 4 toilets. What is it and where is the money for us as students for us to be able to thrive? Why is it in a rural area we are sitting on stones while our counterparts in urban areas have ventilated rooms and sitting on desks, and everybody is sitting on their own desk and we are sharing 4 of us, for example? So we help them articulate these issues and bring them together with duty bearers, and that takes agency. And that is the future that we want to see, because when kids or students are able to articulate issues affecting their community today, they're the youth. We are not saying they're youth for tomorrow. They're the youth for today. And that is the youth that we are trying to empower. We have further constructed 3 libraries, ensuring that they have computers, because most of our kids have never seen a computer. Now, this is personal for Wendo specifically, because I didn't know how to read until much later. So books were a way for me to travel to places I had never been. And I imagine that this is what we can do for our students, for them to have an imagination like I did. I used to think of flying. I used to think of a beautiful classroom. I used to think of black shoes. And this I read in books for the first time before I even got to have these things. So our Girls for Leaders Voice for Change program is critical for the development and the sustainability of our community. Now, these kids in schools are trained by who we call youth peer providers. These are young people between the age of 18 to 24 who are trained on the curriculum of the things that we have talked about here. And they go to the 65 schools and they teach Girls for Leaders clubs, who then, of course, become agents of change. Now, our Boys for Change program, I'll speak very briefly about it because it's the special sauce. Most of the things happening in the world today are because of patriarchy. Yes, I said it. It's because of patriarchy. When people in power or men make decisions about women's bodies, nobody knows about my body better than me. So for us, Voice for Change program is so critical in girls and women's empowerment, because we are using this program to transform the social and gender norms that reinforce patriarchy and inequality that harm women and girls. Now, we know that men have special problems. So we train young men, both in school and out of school, on the role of men in society. A long time ago in Africa, men used to sit with their fathers and grandfathers, and they were taught about how to be a man of substance, how to respect women, how to respect yourself. Who are you in the community? What do you bring to the table? That nuance, that is missing in our community today. So we teach women, not just Dandelion as a women's organization, but we bring in men, older men, to talk to young men. We train them on menstrual hygiene, and we are among the few organizations where men are the ones who talk about and teach young girls about menstrual hygiene. Because at the end of the day, he's going to be a father, maybe. He's maybe going to be a brother. He's going to be a guardian. And it is critical that they understand that menstrual hygiene is menstruation is normal. So that is why we train men on menstrual hygiene and sexual reproductive health, so that as they grow into men, they're not the ones saying, why are you using contraceptives? If you use contraceptives, you're going to be cold. If you use contraceptives, you're going to be you're going to be promiscuous, you're going to be fat, you're going to be this. So we are training men to understand reproductive health, menstrual hygiene, effects of female genital mutilation on women and to themselves as well. This is a very powerful project because it has enabled 36 villages to stop female genital cutting in our communities today. And it is one of the programs that has supported our Girls for Leaders program to move from 45% transition to the current 96. So from where I stand, we give our Boys for Change program what we call in Dandelion a sweet one. Lastly is the advocacy program. I spoke about advocacy earlier for students, but the advocacy program is much bigger than that. It works towards eradication of female genital mutilation, reducing sexual gender-based violence, sexual gender-based violence prevention, and building sustainable communities. As I said earlier, in Kenya, 4 million girls and women have undergone FGM. Sadly, many of these cases are not reported, and few women who are forced get justice or receive medical care. Now, we improve the knowledge of duty bearers, and this is, I'm talking about the chiefs, the village elders, the district county commissioners, and the whole structure on how to respond to these cases, for them to understand the effect of female genital mutilation and sexual gender-based violence to women or to men in our community. Lastly, through the advocacy program, we teach communities how to advocate and lobby for resources. So in as much as we have, for example, the backpack nurse site in villages somewhere, it means that there is no hospital there for us to be able to set up a backpack nurse there. So our role is to teach the communities around the backpack sites on understanding the government structure, understanding county budgets, and lobbying through public participation for a hospital to be built where Dandelion has set up a backpack nurse. Now, interestingly, over 85 projects have been lobbied by community because of this advocacy program. There is nothing more sustainable than communities that understand that they have a voice and they can use it to lobby for things that they want because the community is theirs. So it is important that we continue teaching our communities that the money is theirs. We are taxpayers. We have to claim what is rightfully ours, not to walk around with placards and leaves, but to have dialogue with our duty bearers and also show that we understand that budget has been allocated for water. We want a borehole. Budget has been allocated for a hospital. We want a hospital. Budget has been allocated for a road. We are tired of falling in mud. We want our road. And this has actually enabled villages to have public service, schools, roads, boreholes, and they continue to use this as a way to sustain their communities. I'm a firm believer of the dandelion flower and the feathers. When you blow a dandelion, it will land somewhere and it will grow. Now, our model is mentorship, where we lift others as we climb. So we have intentionally decided as an organization to work with smaller community-based organizations, train them on our model, because when I started Dandelion, I didn't know anything about nonprofits. But whatever I have learned in the last 15 years, together with our team, we've come together, created a curriculum, lifting organizations in our thematic area doing incredible work, teaching them our model, combining with theirs, and introducing them to funders and letting them do God's work. Because at the end of the day, we will never be able to address all the issues that are ailing our communities when it is only Dandelion working on that. And that for me is what we call localization within. And that is a true spirit of how organizations, bigger organizations, can work with smaller organizations. Now, I'll briefly go through our impact. As you can see, in 2024, I'll only talk about for the interest of time. We reached over 57,000 women with contraceptives, and supported over 16,000 scale deliveries. For advocacy, 34 community projects were implemented by duty bearers after community dialogues. Over the last 6 years, I will also just go through a few of the impacts that we have had. 250,000 people have accessed primary healthcare through the backpack nurse model. We have also seen over 250,000 women accessing long-term contraceptives. Through the Dandelion Medical Centers, over 2,000 babies have been safely delivered, reducing maternal mortality. We have enrolled girls, students into the Girls for Leaders Voice for Change Club in 65 schools. Over 10,000 businesses have been started in women groups, and 80 community projects lobbied and completed. Now, for me to see this impact, it means that even if we change just one life, that woman will have so much impact in her community. 900,000 have accessed medical care through Dandelion, and over 7,000 women have doubled their income. If one woman can impact 20 women, how many women and how many communities have been impacted by 7,000 women? I'll let you sit with that question for a while. Now, I know there's so much going on in the world today with the political or the geopolitical context of our time right now. The freeze of funding, and I'm really sad by what's happening in the world today. A lot of our counterparts are hurting. Dandelion has both community-based organizations and our own clients, HIV clients, who are at risk of not getting their medication. We have issues, for example, of tuberculosis, HIV. There's so much pain right now in our sector. And this is just one. I've refused to write the word challenge because I'm looking at all these things as opportunities. And the reason I'm looking at them as opportunities is because the geopolitical context then puts into light the budgeting that the country itself puts on its own healthcare, which is a wake-up call for Kenya, for example, where we need to budget better for critical issues like contraceptives, for critical issues like HIV medication, for critical issues like TB, for critical issues like employment of healthcare workers, because we cannot put such critical things that they define who women are, and we are putting all that in the hands of a few elites. I think we need to start looking at localization within. We need to have sustainable models within our country that cares for women, because the people making decisions about budget are definitely not women. Now, the other opportunity is cultural. In our context, as you can see here, it is women who carry water. It is women who milk. It is women, for example, in Kajiado, in Busa, who build homes. It is men who own properties like cows, land, everything else. And it is our collective responsibility to continue to mentor and to train our communities in totality, not just women, but men also, on the importance of our collective action. Because when we come together, all of us together, we will be able to mitigate the suffering of our people faster, and poverty will be an issue of the past. Now, the other opportunity is human resource and finance. Organizations like Dandelion rely on donor funding. Of course, we have a few I'm not even going to call it income generating activities, but social enterprise, where we have our boreholes, we sell water, we teach women on agribusiness. But we can do a lot more with support. We can do a lot more with volunteers, for example, who are versed in, say, for example, research, for us to see the intersection between economic empowerment and sexual reproductive health. And those are the opportunities that I see. And I don't see them as challenges rather than opportunities today. Now, how do we accelerate action and ensure that we leave no one behind? I'm going to speak very briefly about how and what we are looking at. So we have 3 arms: the health system strengthening, where we hope to strengthen 200 health facilities through training. The other arm is we aim to train over 720 community advocates on advocacy program, so that we can lobby for more resources within our context. Now, the other arm is community health strengthening, where we aim to train an additional 1,500 community health promoters, because we understand that for the backpack nurse model to work, we need to work very closely with community health promoters and the government structures for sustainability. Now, the other part is the Girls for Leaders, Boys for Change program. We want to scale it to 2 new other counties and reach 100 schools in 3 years to improve opportunities for education for our girls. We want to aim in economic power to reach 20,000 women in agripreneurship in the next 3 hours. I know for a fact that it is possible, because if a woman like me can sit on a table like this, presenting to an audience, an amazing audience like you, then anything is possible. Thank you very much for listening to me and connecting with us. I'm sure Stephanie will share these slides. We have other slides that have stories of change that you can read at your leisure. Thank you so much for listening to me, and back to you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. That was such a wonderful presentation. It's so amazing to get to listen to you and hear more about this important work and the work being done by Dandelion. Yeah, I think someone in the chat, I think Jen just said that your presentation was just very moving. It was very passionate, and it's just incredible to see the work being done on the ground. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. We've got about 15 minutes for Q&A, so I'm going to ask a few questions here. As always, if any of you who are tuning in live have any questions that you'd like answered, please feel free to voice them in the chat, and we'll get to as many as possible. All right, so you, at the end of your presentation, kind of referenced something that has been on our minds a lot as an organization here working on US funding abroad, which is the impact of cuts to USAID. And I was just wondering, there's like so much rhetoric and so many narratives being put forth here in the United States just about what USAID really does and what the impact is. And I'd like to just hear from you, you know, and as a Kenyan and as someone who's leading an organization working in the space of reproductive rights, what is the impact of USAID? What's the impact of not having it? And what are these cuts really doing?
Thank you for your question, Hannah. I don't know if I will do justice to this question since I'm limited to how much I can share. But we are not directly funded by USAID. But I know that, for example, we work with community-based organizations, as I said, through our localization within model. And one of the community-based organizations has 186 HIV positive women. Now, the agony is the current state where we have been told, for example, or they have been told that there is only supply for ARVs for 6 months. I don't know what it feels like to know or not to know what the next 6 months, after the next 6 months, what that will look like. And the mental anguish for people living with HIV that are directly impacted by whatever is happening. So that is the first thing. Apart from that, of course, we have a CCC center, because Dandelion was started because I lost my best friend to HIV. So our integrated model has ensured that we've integrated HIV into all our programming. And the tragedy of it is not knowing what we're gonna do the next 6 months, and no amount of planning can prepare us for what's coming. So that's the agony, the direct agony that we feel for our patients, some who are babies born of HIV mothers who are in our care. And I can't express to you what that feels like right now as I sit here. I think lack of contraceptives, and why for me it's personal, because I know the impact of not having contraceptives, and the fact that we have not budgeted as a country for millions of women is crazy. If nothing changes, can you imagine not knowing if you're pregnant or not? And the babies keep coming. I don't want to imagine the tragedy of where we've been. I feel like if we're going back in time, and all the gains that we have made is just going to be washed away. And as a leader, I've never felt so stranded in my life as I feel today, not for myself, but for the community that we serve. Because one way or the other, whether we're directly impacted or not, someone I know is impacted. And that's where I'm sitting right now, Hannah. I'm sorry for that. Yeah.
No, thank you so much. That yeah, it is such a travesty what's going on. And yeah, I thank you for your honest response. It's nice to hear again from someone who actually understands firsthand what the impact of this really means. I want to switch gears a little bit just to ask you about some of the cultural barriers to the work you're doing. There have been a few questions in the chat that are looking at and trying to understand the influence of men in these programs, in this practice. And it sounds like your Boys for Change program is amazing and kind of addressing the issue of men's resistance to family planning and reproductive health and maybe gender equality. But I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more into just this process. Like, how do men usually receive women starting to become educated within their communities or starting to receive reproductive health? And how do you approach any resistance that you may encounter to realizing better gender equality within your community?
Thank you so much for that question. Well, I have to say in the beginning, it was not easy, because in a patriarchy society, anything women empowerment is looked at disempowering of men. So we struggled a lot in the beginning. But one of the things that we did right from the beginning was formation of community boards. So community boards are a group of people that we identify in the community who got the ear of the community, and we train them on what we are doing so that there is buy-in by the community. They also help us to structure our languaging on what is palatable in communities, because if you say family planning, people think you're saying don't have children. So we talk about spacing, for example. We coin words like you're using a password when women are coming to ask for contraceptives so that nobody knows. it's actually contraceptive. So we make it fun in a way so that women are actually able to access the service. So when it comes to men, we recruited men from the community, older men, younger men, and men in schools, because we are looking at systemic change, and we have to look backwards to be able to move forward. So if we don't train younger men on the issues affecting women today, then they will grow up to be men who will be making decisions about women later. So we train them on reproductive health. In the beginning, of course, as I said, it wasn't easy, but I think also because of technology, a lot more men are understand, and also because of how hard the economy is. So we just use the economy. We say, hey, just look at how expensive life is. If you have 10 children, they can't go to school, you can't feed them. It is important to space so that also mama has time to look after herself, her health, and help in building the family income as well, because she has time for productive work, with amazing results. Because the moment we had a community board and we had the first cohort of Voice for Change, the rest is history, because other men wanted to join a movement that is successful. They could see it being recognized within the community. People wanted to be associated with a movement that was making impact. And there was examples in the family of families that were changing. And I think that was the buy-in. And I think so far, as we go into other communities using the same model that are even more patriarchal than where we've been before, there is more buy-in. The Maasai community, for example, where men are saying it is okay for our women to use contraceptives, something that was never heard of before. Yeah.
Thank you. That's very interesting. I wanted to also ask you, in your discussion about women's livelihoods, I think I heard you say that women aren't able to own the land. And if that's true, like if I understand that correctly, then that means that women are producing food on land that they don't own. So I was just wondering if you could speak into that a little bit, and what movements there are towards creating a more equal system here, because obviously this has a direct impact not only on women's lives and gender equality, but also on things like the ability to produce food more efficiently and to properly adapt to, not properly, but more effectively adapt to climate change.
Thank you so much for that question, Hannah. In the Constitution of Kenya, of course, women are allowed to own land, and a woman can buy land. But in culturally, in the communities where we work, if you buy land, I don't know what you will tell your husband. And why are you buying land for yourself? I'm an entire man enough to buy land. But anyway, so it's more cultural, more than constitutional. I don't know if that makes sense. So, for example, in Amboseli, it would be difficult for a woman to own land. So part of the programming is teaching women and men about advocacy, about sharing of resources, for example, analyzing the time spent by women vis-a-vis men on different activities that happen during the day, for example, cow herding, water collection, etc., for them to understand how much time everything takes. So yes, women do plant. When they plant food, it's for all of us. But when it comes to the title of the land, it belongs to the man. So those are some of the issues that are happening. But what is interesting currently, women are buying land collectively. And that's the strategy we are using in places where we don't want to interfere with the family fabric and the cultural fabric. And there is a reason why things stayed the way they did. So our job is not to interfere so much with the family fabric, but to be able to redesign how women own property, for example. So if it's me, you, and other women, we can buy property and put it in our group's name, so Wendo and Hannah and company, and it will still be ours. And we will still plant and we'll still build and it will be ours. So we are looking at how else do we design while keeping the family together and not creating an imbalance in our very cultural communities, and then not putting women at risk so that it doesn't perpetuate issues of gender-based violence. So that's the immediate example that I can give you, Hannah. Thank you.
No, that's great. Thank you. Also really interesting. Thanks for speaking into the nuance of that, because it's not just about like realizing rights, there's all of these cultural implications as well, and it's important to approach it sensitively. So thank you for that answer. Yeah, so in your model that you talked about at the beginning and throughout the presentation, I think you referenced some work with the government, and there are a few questions just asking about how that's going, if that's on average more helpful or challenging, and what the importance of your work with the government is.
Thank you so much for that question. I think for sustainability, it's important to figure out a way as an organization to integrate our model into the government system. So, for example, the current government has a bottom-up approach where they envision digitizing and training over 100,000 community health promoters, so that we are focusing more on preventive than curative services in healthcare. So how we are coming in is, for example, in Baringo County, we are leads together with another organization, Lola Community Alliance, where we trained over 2,000 community health promoters on electronic community health information systems, which is an app on a phone. And that helps women or community health promoters to go door to door to do household registration. And that goes straight to the government dashboard, where they're able to see the number of malnutrition kids. We are actually able to see it as well, because then that helps us to make informed decision that is aligned to the government agenda. So that, when they're talking about, for example, now when they're talking about contraceptives, we actually have data and we can follow through and say community health promoters that are yours have collected this data. It's not a Dandelion data. It is our data as a collective. So that is how we work with the government. Is it easy? Sometimes. Sometimes it's not, because there is clash in how some things are so easy, but it's made so difficult. I don't know if I'm making sense. The lack of contraceptives, for example, if we need contraceptives in our health facility, it would be difficult. So we always have to fundraise for the contraceptives we give our women, because the amount we get from the government is close to 0.5% of how much we want to give women. So I think that is probably what I would say. So it is important to work with government, but for us, it's mainly in healthcare and education, because you can't go into a school without an MOU or memorandum of understanding from the Ministry of Education. And I think that is important as well, so that when we step back, the structure and the system is already there. And lastly, I spoke about the data quality, which is important for us to work with the government to be able to help them clean the data, so that that data, as they're moving it from facility to Kenya Health Information Systems, it is actually accurate and it can inform on other interventions that even other organizations can use that. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. We are right past the hour, so we will wrap it up. Thank you so much again. I really appreciated this presentation, and I'm sure everyone who tuned in does as well. It was really wonderful to get to learn more about Dandelion and the important work that you're doing. Thank you so much, truly. It's been great. So we will be in touch. I think Stephanie is going to follow up with an email answering questions that weren't discussed today live, and she'll probably also include information about how to get more directly involved with Dandelion as well. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day, and thank you again, Wendo.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.